July 5th, 1973. A crowd of people forced their way out of the ticket office next to us to raid MC Bun to get some food to eat. Something got to them. We heard screaming and fear, and they didn't get back to the room. We covered all the windows with drapes and blankets so that we didn't get hurt if something else happened, like another explosion or something. I really hope they're okay. 12:30 p.m. He was okay. I couldn't believe it. Edward was still there. He was scared, and some of the coaches were badly burned, but he was okay. Me and Charlie knew what we had to do. We grabbed some of Tom Bum's coats and bolted as fast as we could. Edward was low on coal, but he did have enough water to make it to Tidmouth. If engines will be hiding anywhere on the island, it's there. We were shocked to see James pull up to the station with empty coaches. He seemed pretty pent up about something, since he was taking his anger out on Edward. Not sure what was on his mind at the time, but Joseph told me they left half the train at the platform instead of getting them all aboard before the blast hit them. By the way he was acting, James definitely saw something the rest of us didn't. Felix told us he received a radio transmission that the mainland ordered the Vickerstown Rolling Bridge to be dismantled as soon as possible, as this pandemic has worsened. We need to get as far as possible. Also on his way over, he and James passed the sheds. They apparently heard Thomas's whistle from the inside, with the cries of a saddened soul accompanied with it. Some disgusting mutated trucks had jammed the turntable with their body, so he's probably trapped in there for a while. Those trucks somehow gained the ability to move themselves down the line, which is probably going to lead to lines being blocked later on. After laying about in the station for an hour, we thought it was time we left. Instead of heading to Tidmouth, we thought it would be better to try and make it to the bridge. Felix and I were talking about how scary it was to run away from such a disaster. We got a call from an unnamed signalman about Boko. We found out he came back to Silver after taking a goods train for the mainland and went straight to Brandon Docks. Nobody told Frank and Marshall, so they drove him straight into the contaminated area. I've been told they haven't come out of there alive. While we were heading down the line, we decided to stop and think about where we should head. Felix made sure James didn't slow down and shot past us, hoping to get across to the mainland. See you later, sucker! However, they went on the wrong line and went straight to Sudbury. I haven't seen them since. Sydney and I decided to check in Wellsworth Station for something to eat, but we didn't. But we didn't even take a step off Edward's footplate when we saw the shattered glass everywhere. It looked like someone broke into the building, so it could have been looters. We got a call from Jem Cole on my two-way radio. We got one for us and one for him so we could talk wherever we wanted, and for Trevor and Edward to keep in touch. Anyways, he took shelter in a bunker underneath his shed. His wife and child are okay, too. Poor Trevor, though. Blast got him bad. Jem had his rifle on him and put the traction engine out of his misery. Edward broke down when I told him the news. We decided to sleep inside Edward's cab. It might be risky, but it's less hazardous than sleeping in a building with tons of shattered glass. Luckily, we still had a fire blanket in the cab, so we used that. I hope this nightmare ends soon. We woke up to the sound of rain pelting on top of Edward's cab. We were surprised he didn't tell us or complain how wet he was getting, but either way, we got up. He started getting his fire ready. We noticed how we're only half full with coal capacity. Then, to our surprise, we saw Percy shoot past us with what seemed to be Annie and Clarabelle, along with a single troublesome truck on the back. They seemed to be completely unscared, and they didn't even stop to check on us. As we traveled down the line, we decided to check the Kildane Ironworks just to look for survivors, and sadly, no one was there. The only thing which remained was the hollow corpse of another engine whose shape was all too familiar. There was only one great pannier Tinkle nailed, and we knew we had had a lost duck. He had no eyes and a gaping hole in his forehead. Just the mere sight of him made me want to vomit. Several pieces had been ripped off of him. He was missing a sidewall and a few sections of handrail. To add that, it seems as if the whole engine was completely hollow. Boiler tubes, water tanks, and bunker, all empty. Hell, even the ashes at the bottom of his firebox were gone. We decided to leave, and while doing so, we spotted the Ironworks twins. They were empty shells tossed aside of the line. We didn't stick around for long. We went down the line on Kildane, and we couldn't believe what we saw. Henry and a bunch of workmen from Brendam were as safe as can be in a goods shed. Henry was overjoyed to see Edward, but seemed to be a bit focused on something else. They talked about the things they saw and how thankful they were to have survived. I asked Paul how Henry wasn't mutated. The reason he survived and hasn't been affected by the mutation is because of his special cold. The puppy used the day prior was his older special Welsh cold, and he had to take a few cold trucks as well as fish during his usual weekly kipper round, and thankfully he used it to keep him alive through the week. We then noticed how many people were in the sheds. I counted around 23 people, excluding Edward and Henry. We decided to stick together and spend the night with them. Henry's crew ride on the front of his footplate, behind this wooden shield they made from an old truck. They used it to run down the line to see if they could find anyone who needed assistance, but stopped 2 days ago when they tried to make their way to the ironworks. An engine was blocking their path, but they were apparently too busy going the other way to probably see it. Apparently, several engines have passed by here recently. Henry had noticed Percy pass by yesterday morning, and the night before Gordon shot past. He didn't say anything, but Henry could hear him trying to scream, but all that came out was the sound of whistling coming through the holes in his face.